Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Discovery, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. His hands were steady on the command chair, but his heart was beating fast. Today was the day humans would meet aliens for the first time. The Discovery was not a warship. It was built for exploration and peace. The ship carried gifts from Earth, messages of friendship, and hopes for a better future. Jake had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. His crew was the best Earth could offer. "Captain, we are approaching the border," said Lisa Chen from her communication station. She was young but smart, chosen because she could speak 12 Earth languages. If anyone could talk to aliens, it would be Lisa. Ryan Murphy sat at the tactical station, but his weapons were powered down. He was there only for protection, not for fighting. The big man looked uncomfortable with his guns turned off, but those were the orders from Earth. Kate Williams worked at the science station, recording everything. She would be the first human to study alien technology. Her excitement filled the bridge like electricity. "Send the friendship message again," Jake ordered. "Make sure they know we come in peace." Lisa pressed buttons on her console. The message went out in mathematics, pictures, and music. It said the same thing in many ways. "We are humans from Earth. We want to be friends. We bring gifts and knowledge to share." The alien response came quickly. Too quickly. "Captain, I'm reading 50 ships heading straight for us," Ryan said. His voice was tight with worry. "They're big, and they're armed." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was not how first contact was supposed to happen. "Lisa, send the message again. Tell them we are peaceful." "I'm trying, sir, but they're not answering." On the viewing screen, the alien ships appeared. They were dark and angular, like giant metal insects. Each one was 3 times larger than the Discovery. Their weapons were already glowing with deadly energy. "Sir, they're targeting us," Ryan reported. "Should I raise shields?" Jake made the hardest decision of his life. "Raise shields, but do not arm weapons. Send a message to Earth. Tell them what's happening." The alien ships surrounded the Discovery like wolves around a rabbit. Their leader, Admiral Kronos of the Zephyrian Empire, sat in his command chair with satisfaction. These humans looked weak. Their ship was small and lightly armed. This would be easy. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. 12 different alien species bowed to their power. They had never met a species they could not defeat or control. These humans would be no different. "Admiral, the humans are sending more of their strange signals," reported his communications officer. "Ignore them," Kronos said with a wave of his clawed hand. "Emperor Vexthul wants these humans to learn respect. We will teach them." On the Discovery, alarms were screaming. The alien ships had locked weapons on them from every direction. There was no escape. "Message sent to Earth, Captain," Lisa said. "But it will take 3 months to reach them." Jake nodded. 3 months was too long. Earth needed to know what was happening now. "Ryan, prepare an emergency beacon. Load it with everything we've learned about these aliens." "Sir, if we launch that beacon, they'll definitely shoot us," Ryan warned. "They're going to shoot us anyway," Jake replied. "At least Earth will know what they're facing." Kate looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup from their weapons. They're about to fire." Jake stood up from his chair. He thought about his wife back on Earth, about the children who would never know about the stars because of what was about to happen. But he also thought about Earth's military, sleeping peacefully because they thought space was safe. "Launch the beacon," he ordered. The small beacon shot out from the Discovery just as the alien weapons fired. 50 ships opened fire at once, their energy beams tearing through the human ship like paper. The Discovery's shields lasted only seconds, but the beacon escaped. It carried Jake's final message, Kate's scientific data, and Lisa's translation work. Most importantly, it carried Jake's last words. "They opened fire without warning. We were just diplomats. Earth must be ready for war." Admiral Kronos watched the human ship explode into tiny pieces. "Too easy," he said to his officers. "Send word to the Emperor. The humans have been dealt with. Their homeworld will surrender when they learn what happened here." But Kronos was wrong about many things. He was wrong about humans being weak. He was wrong about Earth surrendering. Most of all, he was wrong about the Discovery being a warship. 3 months later, the beacon reached Earth. Military leaders read Jake Morrison's final message in silence. Admiral Robert Stone, the head of Earth's defense forces, called an emergency meeting. "They killed our diplomats," he said to the room full of generals and admirals. "They fired on a peaceful ship without warning. This means war." But Earth's leaders were smart. They did not send their main battle fleet. Instead, they sent the Forward Defense Force, led by Commander Alex Turner. These were Earth's border patrol ships, designed to handle pirates and small threats. The Forward Defense Force had 12 ships. Compared to Earth's main military, they were almost nothing. But compared to what the aliens had seen, they would seem like a massive response to a small action. As the human ships prepared to leave Earth, no one told the aliens what was coming. The Zephyrian Empire thought they had won an easy victory. They had no idea they had just started a war with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The aliens thought humans were weak because their exploration ship was peaceful. They did not know that humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. They did not know that Earth's real military had never left the solar system. They did not know that Jake Morrison and his crew were just the beginning. Soon, the Zephyrian Empire would learn the difference between human diplomats and human soldiers. They would learn why Earth had spent so much money on weapons instead of exploration ships. Most importantly, they would learn that attacking peaceful humans was the worst mistake they had ever made. The war had begun, and the aliens had no idea what was coming for them. 6 months had passed since the Discovery was destroyed. The Zephyrian Empire waited for news of human surrender, but space remained quiet. Too quiet. Admiral Cronus paced his command ship, worried. "Where are the human surrender messages?" he asked his officers. "They should be begging for mercy by now." His communications officer checked his screens again. "Nothing, sir. No signals from human space at all." "Perhaps they are planning something," suggested his tactical officer. Cronus laughed, but it sounded nervous. "What could they plan? We saw their ship. It was primitive and weak. But deep in space, something was moving toward the Zephyrian border. 12 human ships flew in perfect formation, their hulls dark against the stars. These ships looked nothing like the peaceful Discovery. Commander Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the UNS Vengeance, the lead ship of humanity's forward defense force. The Vengeance was built for war with thick armor and powerful weapons. Turner was not a diplomat like Jake Morrison. He was a soldier, and he was angry. "Sir, we're approaching the alien border," reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Gary Brooks. "Good," Turner replied. "Are the other ships ready?" "All 11 ships report ready for combat, sir," said his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park. "Captain Mike Chen's squadron is on our left. Captain Sandra Martinez has the right flank." Turner nodded. Each of his ship captains was experienced in fighting pirates and raiders. They knew how to work together, how to hit fast and hard. Be the mine. Aliens were about to learn what human military coordination looked like. "Target the border world called Keth Prime," Turner ordered. "Intelligence says it's lightly defended. We'll make our point there." The human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Keth Prime system. Immediately, alien defense platforms began screaming warnings in their strange language. "Unidentified ships, you are entering Zephyrian space. Surrender or be destroyed," came the translation through their computers. Turner smiled coldly. "Send," a reply. "Tell them this is for the Discovery." The battle began within minutes. The Zephyrian defenders had 25 ships guarding Keth Prime, but they had never faced anything like human military tactics. Captain Sandra Martinez led her 3 destroyers in a sweeping attack on the alien left flank. Her ships moved like dancers, covering each other and striking weak points. The aliens tried to respond, but their movements were slow and predictable. Captain Mike Chen brought his fighters in from above, diving down on the alien capital ships, like hunting birds. Squadron leader Danny Clark led the fighter attack, his pilots weaving between alien defensive fire like it was standing still. But the real shock came when the humans reached the planet itself. Marine Colonel Beth Rodriguez led the ground assault with tactics the aliens had never seen before. Drop zones secured, Rodriguez reported to Turner from the planet's surface. Enemy forces are retreating. They fight like they've never seen real combat. She was right. The Zephyrians had not fought a real war in over 1,000 years. They knew how to police their empire and handle small rebellions, but they had never faced an enemy that fought back with skill and determination. The human Marines moved through the alien cities like professionals. They used cover, coordinated their attacks, and showed no fear. The Zephyrian defenders, used to easy victories over primitive species, found themselves completely outmatched. Within 6 hours, Keth Prime had fallen. The planetary governor surrendered when human forces surrounded his palace. Admiral Kronos, who had been ordered to defend the system, barely escaped with 3 damaged ships. Turner stood in the captured government building, reading reports from his officers. "Casualties?" he asked Colonel Rodriguez. 12 wounded, none killed, she replied. The aliens fought bravely, but they had no idea what they were doing. Turner frowned. Something was wrong here. These aliens ruled a galactic empire, but they fought like amateurs. Either they were holding back their real forces, or they had grown soft from too many easy victories. Captain Martinez joined them in the captured command center. "Sir, we've been monitoring alien communications. They're calling for massive reinforcements." "How massive?" Turner asked. "From what we can understand, they're mobilizing hundreds of ships," Martinez replied. "They seem to think we're humanity's entire military force." Turner almost laughed. The Forward Defense Force was Earth's border patrol. Their job was to handle small threats and pirates. Earth's real military was 10 times larger and had never left the solar system. But the aliens didn't know that. To them, 12 human warships had just destroyed a heavily defended world in a few hours. They thought they were facing humanity's main battle fleet. Back on the Zephyrian capital world, Emperor Vexthol received Admiral Kronos' report in stunned silence. The human attack had been swift, brutal, and completely successful. "How many ships did they have?" the Emperor asked. 12, Your Majesty, Kronos replied. "But they fought like nothing we've ever encountered. Their coordination was perfect. Their weapons were designed for maximum destruction. They showed no mercy." The Emperor's advisors whispered among themselves. 12 ships had defeated 25 Zephyrian vessels and captured an entire world. What would happen if the humans sent 50 ships or 100? "Mobilize the Third Fleet," the Emperor ordered. 200 ships should be enough to crush these humans before they can do more damage. War Master Quintel stepped forward. "Your Majesty, 200 ships is nearly a quarter of our active military. Perhaps we should negotiate." "No," the Emperor said firmly. "These humans destroyed our ships without warning. They attack our worlds without mercy. They must be stopped before they threaten the entire empire." But as the Zephyrian Third Fleet prepared for battle, they made the same mistake Admiral Kronos had made. They thought they understood their enemy. They thought 12 ships was all humanity could field. They had no idea that Commander Turner's force was considered small by human standards. They didn't know that Earth's real military consisted of thousands of ships. Most importantly, they didn't know that humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years and were very, very good at it. The Zephyrian Empire was about to send 200 ships against what they thought was humanity's entire military. Instead, they would be fighting a border patrol unit that had been specifically trained to handle much larger forces. As Turner prepared his defenses on Keth Prime, he received a message from Earth. "Continue current operations with existing forces," it read. "Main fleet remains on defensive protocol." Turner smiled as he read those words. Earth wasn't even worried enough to send reinforcements. The real military was staying home, waiting to see what happened. The aliens were about to learn a hard lesson about the difference between human diplomats and human soldiers. But they still had no idea how much harder that lesson was going to get. General Patricia Hayes stood in the command center on Keth Prime, studying the holographic star map. Red markers showed Zephyrian fleet movements throughout the sector. The aliens were gathering ships from all over their empire, preparing for what they clearly thought would be the final battle. "General intelligence report from Major Thompson," said her aide. handing her a data pad. Hayes read the report and felt her blood run cold. 200 ships? She asked. Major Chris Thompson nodded grimly. Our translation computers are getting better at their language. They're calling it the Third Fleet. Near as we can tell, it represents about 25% of their active military. Hayes set down the data pad and looked at the tactical display. Commander Turner's 12 ships were spread across 3 systems, holding the territory they had captured. 12 ships against 200 seemed like impossible odds. But Hayes had read the performance reports from the border battles. Human ships were winning engagements at odds of 3 and 4 to 1. The aliens fought like they had forgotten how war worked. What's the status of our reinforcements? Hayes asked. Earth Defense Command has authorized the deployment of 18 additional ships, Thompson replied. That brings us to 30 total, 30 ships against 200. The math still looked bad, but Hayes had been a soldier for 20 years. She knew that numbers weren't everything in war. Training, tactics, and experience mattered more. The Zephyrian Third Fleet gathered at a staging area called the Nexus Corridor, a natural choke point between star systems. Fleet Admiral Thexmore commanded the fleet from his massive flagship, the Eternal Victory. Thexmore was old, even by Zephyrian standards. He had spent 300 years keeping peace in the Empire, crushing small rebellions and handling pirates, but he had never fought against a species that knew how to fight back. Admiral, the human fleet is approaching, reported his tactical officer. 30 ships, just as our spies reported. Thexmore felt confident. 30 ships against 200 was not even a fair fight. The humans had shown skill in their previous battles, but numbers would tell in the end. Prepare for battle, he ordered. We will crush these humans and end their threat to the Empire. But as the human fleet entered the Nexus Corridor, something strange happened. Instead of forming a traditional battle line, the human ships spread out in an unusual formation that Thexmore had never seen before. Captain Sandra Martinez commanded the lead squadron, 5 fast destroyers that moved like a pack of wolves. Behind her, Captain Mike Chen led the heavy cruisers, their thick armor and powerful guns ready for close combat. But the real surprise came from Captain Steve Johnson's carrier group. Human fighters poured out of their launch bays in numbers that shocked the Zephyrian fleet. Each human ship carried more fighters than an entire Zephyrian squadron. Squadron leader Tony Rodriguez led the fighter attack, his pilots flying in formations that seemed to dance through space. The Zephyrian pilots tried to intercept them, but the humans moved with a coordination that was almost supernatural. How are they doing that? Thexmore demanded as human fighters tore through his defensive screens. Their pilots move like they can read each other's minds. His tactical officer checked his instruments frantically. Sir, they're using some kind of advanced communication system. Each pilot knows exactly where every other pilot is at all times. What the aliens didn't understand was that human pilots had been training together for years. They knew each other's flying styles, could predict each other's moves, and had practiced these formations thousands of times. The real battle began when Captain Martinez led her destroyers straight into the heart of the Zephyrian formation. Her ships moved in perfect coordination, each one covering the others, their weapons firing in timed salvos that overwhelmed alien defenses. The UNS Defiant, Martinez's flagship, danced between 2 Zephyrian heavy cruisers, her guns tearing holes in their armor while her escorts finished them off. The aliens tried to surround her, but Captain Chen's cruisers smashed into their flank, breaking their formation apart. Captain Steve Johnson's fighters were everywhere at once, hitting weak points, disrupting communications, and causing chaos throughout the Zephyrian fleet. The aliens had never faced anything like this coordinated assault. But what really terrified the Zephyrians was how the humans seemed to enjoy the fight. Human pilots laughed over their communication channels as they destroyed enemy ships. Human captains congratulated each other on particularly clever tactics. They fought like warriors who had been born for this moment. Admiral Thexmore watched his fleet being torn apart and couldn't understand how it was happening. The humans were outnumbered nearly 7 to 1, but they were winning. His ships were exploding around him while the human fleet seemed to grow stronger. Sir, we've lost 60% of our ships, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking with fear. The humans have lost only 3 vessels. Thexmore made the hardest decision of his long career. Signal retreat. All ships withdraw immediately. But even the Zephyrian retreat turned into a disaster. Human ships pursued them like hunting hounds, picking off stragglers and damaged vessels. The aliens who escaped carried stories of human weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics and tactics that made no sense. Only 43 Zephyrian ships made it back to their staging area. The Third Fleet, the pride of the Empire, had been destroyed by a force 1/7 its size. When news of the defeat reached Emperor Vex Thul, he sat in stunned silence for a long time. 200 ships, gone. Thousands of trained officers and crew dead or captured, all defeated by 30 human vessels. How is this possible, he asked his advisors. How can such a small force defeat our entire fleet? War Master Quintel spoke carefully. Your Majesty, the humans fight like no species we have ever encountered. They coordinate their attacks perfectly. Their weapons are more advanced than ours. Their tactics are completely unpredictable. And their numbers? The Emperor asked. This appears to be their entire military force, Quintel replied. They have committed everything to this war, but they are clearly more dangerous than we thought. The Emperor stood and walked to the great window of his palace, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 30 human ships had just destroyed the pride of his empire. If this was humanity's entire military, they were still a threat that had to be taken seriously. Mobilize the Grand Fleet, he ordered. Every ship, every captain, every weapon we have. We will end this threat once and for all. His advisors exchanged worried glances. The Grand Fleet was the Empire's entire military, over 1,000 ships, from across the galaxy. Using it against 30 human vessels seemed like massive overkill, but they had thought 200 ships was overkill too. What none of them knew was that the 30 human ships in the Nexus corridor represented less than 1% of Earth's actual military capability. The real Earth defense fleet had never left the solar system. The Zephyrian Empire was about to commit everything they had against what they thought was humanity's main force. In reality, they were going to war against Earth's border patrol while the real human military waited at home, watching and learning. The greatest military disaster in galactic history was about to begin, and the aliens still had no idea what they were really fighting. Dr. Amanda Foster sat in her small laboratory on Keth Prime, surrounded by captured Zephyrian communication equipment. For weeks, she had been working to understand their language better. As a xenolinguist, she was fascinated by how the aliens thought and spoke. But what she discovered in the latest batch of intercepted messages made her hands shake. General Hayes, you need to see this immediately, Amanda said into her communicator. 20 minutes later, General Hayes arrived with Major Chris Thompson and Colonel Nathan Brooks, head of strategic planning. Amanda's workspace was covered with translation charts and alien text samples. What did you find, Doctor? Hayes asked. Amanda took a deep breath. I've been analyzing their military communications from the last 6 months. General, they think our expeditionary force is our entire military. The room went silent. Hayes sat down heavily in a chair. What do you mean? Look at these translations, Amanda said, pointing to her screens. They keep referring to the human war machine and their total military capability. When they talk about our 30 ships, they call it the full strength of Earth's military forces. Major Thompson leaned forward. Are you saying they don't know about the defense fleet? They have no idea, Amanda replied. To them, 30 ships represents everything humanity can put into space. They think we've committed our entire civilization to this war. Colonel Brooks whistled softly. No wonder they're mobilizing their whole empire. They think they're fighting for their lives against our main battle fleet. Hayes stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the human ships in orbit around. Keth Prime, 30 vessels, the pride of the forward defense force. But compared to what waited back at Earth, they were almost nothing. Doctor, are you absolutely certain about this? Hayes asked. Amanda nodded. I've triple-checked the translations, their intelligence reports, their strategic assessments, their communications to their emperor. They all say the same thing. They believe these 30 ships are all we have. The truth was staggering. Earth's forward defense force, designed to handle pirates and small threats, represented less than 2% of humanity's actual military strength. The real Earth defense fleet consisted of over 1,500 warships that had never left the solar system. Admiral Robert Stone, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, had been watching the war with interest but not concern. To him, this was a training exercise for the forward defense force. The real military stayed home, protecting Earth and the inner colonies. But the aliens didn't know that. Every human victory convinced them more that they were fighting against humanity's total military might. When 30 human ships destroyed 200 Zephyrian vessels, the aliens saw it as proof of human military superiority, not as evidence that there might be more ships waiting at home. "We need to report this to Earth immediately," Hayes said. "Command needs to know what the aliens are thinking." Captain Roy Williams, commanding the UNS Horizon, received the strangest orders of his military career 2 days later. "Continue current operations with existing forces," the message read. "Main fleet remains on Earth defensive protocol. Do not request reinforcements." Williams read the message 3 times before it made sense. Earth Defense Command was telling him to keep fighting with 30 ships while over 1,000 warships sat at home. Either command had lost their minds, or they had a plan he didn't understand. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian capital world, Emperor Vexthul met with his war council in emergency session. The loss of the Third Fleet had shaken the Empire to its core. His military advisors looked frightened and confused. "War Master Quintel, explain to me again how 30 ships destroyed 200 of ours," the Emperor demanded. Quintel consulted his reports nervously. "Your Majesty, the humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. Their technology is adaptive, their tactics are ruthless, and their coordination is perfect. But we have learned something important." "Which is?" "We have bloodied their entire military. Our intelligence confirms that these 30 ships represent the total human space fleet. They cannot have many reserves left." The Emperor leaned back in his throne. This was the key information he needed. The humans were dangerous, but they were few. If he could destroy their current fleet, humanity would be defenseless. "How many ships can we gather?" he asked. Admiral Kronos, still bitter about his defeat at Keth Prime, spoke up. "Your Majesty, we can assemble the Grand Fleet. Over 1,000 ships from every corner of the Empire. Every species, every world, every available vessel. 1,000 ships against 30, the Emperor mused. Even these dangerous humans cannot win against those odds. The decision was made. The Zephyrian Empire would commit everything to destroy humanity's main fleet before it could recover from recent battles. Messages went out across the galaxy, calling every available warship to the final battle. What the aliens didn't understand was that they were about to make the same mistake Admiral Kronos had made months earlier. They were judging humanity based on what they could see, not on what was really there. Back on Earth, Admiral Stone read the intelligence reports with growing amazement. "They think 30 ships is our entire military?" he asked his staff. "Yes, sir," replied his intelligence chief. "They're mobilizing over 1,000 ships to destroy what they believe is our main battle fleet." Stone looked out the window of his office at the massive orbital shipyards around Earth. Hundreds of warships floated in their docks, ready for battle but never needed. The real Earth defense fleet made the forward defense force look like a training squadron. "Sir, should we send reinforcements to the border?" asked his tactical advisor. Stone shook his head. "No. Let's see how this plays out. If 1,000 alien ships can't handle 30 of ours, we'll know humanity is ready to take its place in the galaxy." But Stone also gave a quiet order that few people heard. "Begin moving the home fleet to ready status. If things go badly, we want to be prepared." The stage was set for the greatest military miscalculation in galactic history. The Zephyrian Empire was gathering every ship they had to destroy what they thought was humanity's total military capability. In reality, they were about to attack a border patrol force while the real human military waited at home. The aliens thought they were fighting for the survival of their empire against humanity's main army. The humans thought they were conducting a training exercise with expendable border guards. Both sides were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Amanda Foster continued her translation work. But now she was looking for something specific. Somewhere in the alien communications was information about their fleet movements, their battle plans, and their true capabilities. What she found would change everything. The aliens weren't just sending a large fleet to destroy humanity. They were sending everything they had. Every ship, every captain, every weapon in their empire was coming to Earth's border to finish what Admiral Kronos had started. And they still had no idea that the real human army had never left home. The Zephyrian Grand Fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 1,000 warships from 12 different species stretched across space like a metal storm cloud. At its head flew the Eternal Dominion, Emperor, Vexthul's personal flagship, larger than a small moon. The Emperor stood on his command bridge watching the stars ahead. Somewhere in that darkness waited 30 human ships, the last remnant of humanity's military might. This battle would end the war and secure the Empire's future. "Admiral Kronos, report on fleet status," the Emperor commanded. "All ships ready, Your Majesty," Kronos replied. 1,047 vessels, representing the full military might of 12 worlds. "The humans cannot possibly survive this assault." The Emperor nodded with satisfaction. Even if the humans fought like demons, they were only 30 ships. The Grand Fleet would overwhelm them through sheer numbers. But as the massive alien armada approached the edge of human space, something unexpected began to happen. Long-range sensors started detecting ships. Lots of ships. "Your Majesty," called the sensor officer, his voice confused. "I'm reading multiple contact groups ahead. The humans appear to have reinforcements." Emperor Vexthul frowned. "How many reinforcements?" The sensor officer checked his readings again, not believing what he saw. "Sir, I count over 300 ships between us and Earth. But that's impossible. Our intelligence said they only had 30. What the Zephyrian fleet was seeing was humanity's real military beginning to move. Admiral Robert Stone had given the order 2 hours earlier. "All fleets prepare for system defense. This is not a drill." The ships emerging from Earth's orbital bases and hidden stations were nothing like the forward defense force vessels the aliens had been fighting. These were the heavy warships of Earth's home fleet, built for one purpose: protecting humanity's home system from any threat. Admiral Karen Walsh commanded the first battle group from her flagship, the UNS Retribution. The massive dreadnought was 5 times larger than anything in the forward defense force, its armor thick enough to stop a small asteroid, and its weapons powerful enough to crack a moon. "Admiral Stone sends his regards," Walsh said over the communication channel to her fleet. "Time to show these aliens what Earth's real military looks like." Captain Paul Martinez commanded the carrier group, his fighters already launching in numbers that darkened space. Squadron after squadron poured out of the massive carrier UNS Defiance, each pilot trained for years in the defense of Earth itself. But the real shock for the Zephyrian fleet came when they saw the size of humanity's defensive force. Admiral Tim Johnson led the Third Fleet from his command ship, the UNS Thunderbolt. Behind him came wave after wave of human warships, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and carriers in numbers that defied belief. Captain Nicole Brown's battleship, UNS Thunder, was so large it carried its own fighter squadrons and Marine battalions. Colonel Jack Anderson's Home Guard Marines were already boarding assault ships, preparing to defend Earth itself if necessary. The defensive fleet included hundreds of experienced officers commanding ships the aliens had never imagined. Captain Larry Wilson's heavy cruiser squadron, Commander Jenny Clark's destroyer flotilla, Admiral Dale Cooper's carrier battle group, Captain Frank Miller's missile frigates. As more and more human ships appeared on sensors, Emperor Vexthul began to understand the terrible truth. The 30 ships his empire had been fighting were not humanity's main fleet. They were scouts, border guards. The human military had been sitting at home all along, waiting. "How many ships are there?" he demanded. His sensor officer's voice was barely a whisper. "Over 3,000, Your Majesty, and more are still appearing. 3,000 ships." The number hit the Zephyrian fleet like a physical blow. They had brought everything they had to fight 30 human vessels, only to discover that humanity had 100 times more ships waiting at home. Admiral Stone commanded the defense from his flagship, the UNS Earth's Pride. The massive command ship was surrounded by layers of escorts and support vessels, a mobile fortress that could coordinate the movements of thousands of ships. "Signal the alien fleet," Stone ordered. "Tell them they have one chance to surrender before we destroy them." The message reached Emperor Vexithol in his own language, translated by the same computers that had been studying Zephyrian communications for months. But the Emperor was too shocked to respond. His greatest fleet, the pride of 12 species, was facing odds of 3-1 against ships that made his own vessels look like toys. The battle, when it came, was not really a battle at all. It was a demonstration of what happened when a civilization that had grown soft from easy victories faced a species that had never stopped preparing for war. Captain Nicole Brown's battleship group smashed through the Zephyrian left flank like a hammer through glass. Her guns, designed to crack fortified asteroids, tore through alien armor as if it were paper. Admiral Walsh's dreadnoughts advanced in perfect formation, their massive weapons firing in timed salvos that shattered entire alien squadrons. The Zephyrians tried to respond, but their weapons barely scratched the thick armor of Earth's heavy warships. Meanwhile, Admiral Johnson's carriers launched wave after wave of fighters. Human pilots, defending their home system, flew with a skill and determination that made their previous battles look like training exercises. Colonel Anderson's Marines prepared for boarding actions that never came. The alien ships were being destroyed too quickly for capture operations. But perhaps the most terrifying thing for the Zephyrians was how calmly the humans fought. Their communications were professional and precise. Their movements were coordinated and efficient. They dismantled the Grand Fleet like engineers taking apart a broken machine. Emperor Vexithol watched his empire's military might being destroyed around him. Ship after ship exploded under human fire, his communications channels filled with surrender requests and distress calls. "Your Majesty, we must retreat," Admiral Cronus begged. "We cannot win this battle." But there was nowhere to retreat to. Human ships surrounded the Zephyrian fleet on all sides, methodically destroying any vessel that tried to escape. As his flagship began to burn around him, Emperor Vexthol finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. His empire had attacked humanity's diplomats thinking they were weak. They had fought humanity's border guards thinking they were soldiers. Now they faced humanity's real military, and it was beyond anything they had imagined. With his final transmission, as the Eternal Dominion broke apart under human fire, the Emperor sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. "We have awakened something terrible. The humans we fought were just their border guards. Their real army never left home." The Battle of Sol lasted less than 6 hours. When it was over, the Zephyrian Grand Fleet no longer existed. A few damaged ships limped away to spread the news of their defeat. The rest were debris floating in space. Admiral Stone stood on his bridge watching the wreckage. "Send a message to all Zephyrian worlds," he ordered. "Tell them the war is over. Earth accepts their surrender." But the galaxy had learned something more important than who won a single battle. They had learned that humanity was not just another species to be conquered or controlled. They were warriors who had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. Captain Jake Morrison's sacrifice had not been in vain. His death had revealed humanity to the galaxy, but not as the peaceful explorers he had hoped to show them. Instead, the galaxy learned that the most dangerous predator in space was a species that wanted peace, but was prepared for war. The Zephyrian Empire surrendered within days. Other galactic civilizations quickly offered treaties and trade agreements. Everyone wanted to be friends with the species that could build 3,000 warships and keep them hidden in their home system. And in the depths of space, construction continued on even more human warships. Earth had revealed some of its military might, but not all of it. The galaxy now knew that humanity was strong, but they still didn't know exactly how strong. That was probably for the best. Some secrets were worth keeping.